With opening day supposed to be today for baseball, I kind of wanted to get into what MLB should go and how they should go about their schedule. Because there's been a few rumblings, a few different ideas tossed around. You had Rob Manfred going on ESPN with Scott Van Pelt last night, kind of talking about his thoughts up to this point of how he wants to attack the season. So I have my ideas. I have my ideas about how MLB should go about this season and why, hopefully, at least they don't go or put measures in there too drastic. They'll really change the outcome of the game. And I'll give you at least some thoughts, at least right now, and some other people's thoughts around the game that they have. So like I said, with opening day being today, it's not going to happen. And really, if we're talking about realistic timelines, the commissioner still said he hopes mid-May is the kind of time where we can kick off opening day. I think it's still a little ambitious, still a little tough. And part of the reason for that is because you have people in the game saying they're going to need another spring training. You had the president of the Blue Jays come out earlier this week and basically say they're going to need another month of spring training. So if you kind of do the timeline for that, they need a month of spring training. If Rob Manfred and MLB want to restart this thing, let's say May 15th. They say middle of May, let's just give an arbitrary date, May 15th. Well, that means they're going to have basically opening up spring training, have players go back to their respective camps in Florida and Arizona, and get going in about 2 weeks. It's March 26th, middle of April. Again, it's just about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks away. Do you see a situation where all of a sudden in 2.5 weeks, we're going to get back to sports, not resuming, but at least kind of ramping back up and gearing back up? I don't think so. I mean, I think that's, if you want to be, again, overly optimistic, really hope that maybe the social distancing in the next few weekends can really, again, slow the rate of spreading and really at least bring the hospitals, kind of relieve some stress over them and really, again, hopefully flatten the curve that we all keep talking about and keep hoping for. So you're going to need all of that to happen in just a few weeks in order to start the season around mid-May. I think, to me, at least June 1st is going to be around the time that the season will restart. And you had even people, despite the season starting on June 1st, almost 2 months later than normal, you have people still hoping for a full 162. Scott Boras, notorious player agent in baseball, has a plan. He put out a plan the other day talking with the LA Times, saying that he would start the season on June 1st, and he would basically play the schedule all 162 normally, play it out, which would mean the World Series would be right around Christmas time. Think about that. He would play the season, I believe, through November at these teams' home ballparks for the most part, and then have all the playoffs at basically neutral sites where stadiums or teams have domes or nice weather like in California where you can play both in Dodgers Angel Stadium and the Padres Stadium. So he wants full 162 starting June 1st and have the World Series go through Christmas time. You have another interesting idea with at least Blue Jays general manager, and this idea was backed up by Rockies manager Bud Black, was that they also want to play the full 162, but in doing so, they would kind of try to condense the season to go through just October, and by doing that, they would play doubleheaders once, maybe even twice a week, and those doubleheaders would be 7-inning games. Minor leagues, colleges, and independent leagues have this rule, where if you're going to do a doubleheader, it's 7 innings. So in this idea, at least, teams could play the full schedule and go through October, and it would be basically 9 games a week, let's just say. But at least my idea, I think, is because the only thing I don't like about the doubleheader is that, one, you're shortening the game. I understand it's unprecedented circumstances, so you kind of have to take some unprecedented actions, per se. But at least with 7-inning doubleheaders and trying to really basically have a game that is a marathon, right? Baseball's a marathon, 162 over, I think it's 182 days, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a lot of games with not a lot of off time. Every single day you have to play. I think trying to accelerate that even more and basically make the marathon a sprint where, let's say, a marathon's 26 miles. Well, let's say you make the marathon 20 miles and then it's basically a sprint. It could be, more taxing, more exhausting, and could lead to more injuries. So my thought, at least, is, and this is assuming the season starts right on June 1st. Here's what I would do. I would pick up the schedule as is. So June 1st, if the Mets are playing the Marlins, if the Yankees are playing the Orioles, if the Red Sox are playing the Rays, whatever your team is, on June 1st, whatever they're scheduled, you start the season right there on June 1st. And the reason why I do that is because you have some great matchups early on, or I should say later on in the year, that you still can keep by starting on June 1st and not rescheduling games that you miss in March, April, and May. So you still have the Red Sox visiting the Cubs, which is just obviously two national fan bases and teams that rarely play each other. It'd be cool for history and cool to see two historical franchises go against each other. which that's after June 1st. You keep that. Dodgers and Angels is a great LA rivalry, especially now with the Angels starting to load up on talent. The Angels at the Phillies. You have Mike Trout versus Bryce Harper. You have the Astros and Nationals, World Series rematch. Yankees at White Sox, and they're supposed to play the Field of Dreams in Iowa in August, which is cool. And then you have the Red Sox and Orioles playing in Williamsport in August as well. So by starting on June 1st and starting the schedule as is on June 1st, you keep a lot of these really cool matchups that are scheduled to happen this year. Keep those on the schedule as is. And I like the doubleheader idea. What I would do, though, is I would do it every other Sunday. So that way teams aren't gassed and you're not really you're not pushing the full metal and pushing the pedal down all the way for these teams. So where you're still getting a significant amount of games in and you're still having a doubleheader, but just every other Sunday at least provides some relief and provides some break, especially for the pitchers. And if you're going to start on June 1st, still keep the All-Star game. It's going to be in LA this year at Dodger Stadium. I think it's cool. Just move back a month. Instead of July, which it always is, move back to August. That way you still have 2 full months for these players to make their All-Star bid. A little less time than normal. I mean, think about it. If it's in July, if you start in late March or early April, you have basically 3 months to make your All-Star bid. Here you get 2, but it's still better than nothing. So I'll keep the All-Star weekend, or the All-Star week, I should say, just move from July to August. And right now, at least the schedule is supposed to end on September 27th. That is the last game on Sunday everyone plays. What I would do is I would extend the season 2 extra weeks, end it October 11th. So that way, in total, you have 125 games played, which if you go by percentages, is 77% of the season that you could fit in by starting on June 1st, playing doubleheaders every other Sunday, and ending the season 2 weeks later. And especially now with the way the seasons are changing, and especially at least in the Northeast, I can speak to this more, especially if you're used to living in the Midwest or out West, is that the weather's still nice. September is a gorgeous month here in New York, and going to October 11th, it's not going to get that cold. So if you extend the season 2 extra weeks, it's still going to be pretty nice for the most part. We're not going to have to worry about snow outs. You're not going to have to worry about playing games in 35-degree temperatures for the most part. It's still going to be decently nice to where the schedule and the game won't really get affected too much by the weather. So like I said, you'll play 125 games, which is basically 77% of the season. And at least if you look at the way the NBA is right now, if they just stop and if they resume, which I'll kind of get to the NBA and how they should go about their schedule too. They've played 80% of their schedule right now. So if they decide to come back in June or July and just go right to the playoffs, sure, some teams, especially in the West with that 8th seed being so hotly contested, would get screwed. But at the same time, you played 80% of your games. So sure, there's some time to catch up, and obviously you didn't play the full 82, excuse me. But in a time where this is unprecedented, obviously this is a national pandemic, or a global pandemic, I should say, it doesn't call for extreme. I mean, it calls for extreme actions, and this is not exactly extreme, but at least I think making up the majority. I think a lot of owners, GMs, and players would sign up for the NBA if you told them that the season would come to a screeching halt. 80% of their games already being played, I think they'd sign up for, and MLB being close to 77% of their games being played for with this new adjusted schedule. I think at least would work, and that way too. At least despite the season ending 2 extra weeks, so meaning that the World Series would go basically into the second week of November. I still keep the playoffs as is. I wouldn't change them as I wouldn't shrink them. I wouldn't try to play them on neutral sites because, at least to me, the way I view it, I know Scott Boras at least thinks that playing it through Christmas will get a lot of ratings, and it'll be good for sponsorships when you at least have a neutral site deemed to be the World Series. In his mind, I forget if he listed a stadium or not, but if you have the World Series at Dodger Stadium, let's say, it helps sponsors because they know where it is every year, and they can already start selling sponsorships and start really getting plans made to have a week-long World Series in LA, sort of like what the Super Bowl does, right? Every year you know what the Super Bowl is. You have festivities and all the pomp and circumstance surrounding the game. Scott Boras wants to bring that to baseball. And at least to me, the reason why I'm not a fan of that is because obviously, as fans already, we are already missing games. Again, today's opening day. This is the first time really that's having no sports kind of hit home and kind of it made me feel a little bit depressed. So with already basically 2 months lost of games, despite you making up as many games as you can, the fans to me at least deserve home playoff game and World Series games because they've already lost so much already. And not to mention, having a home field advantage is so important and so key in World Series games and even playoff games, right? You have that electricity. It's so much fun watching games on TV when you have the stadiums rocking, the fans are going crazy. You're not going to get that if it's a neutral site playoff game or World Series game. So at least to me, I love how in the 3 other major sports in hockey, basketball, and baseball, you have World Series games played on home fields. I think that is a great reward, not just for the fans, but also makes the game much more enjoyable to watch on TV. So that's why what I would do, again, doubleheaders every other Sunday, extend the season 2 weeks if you start at June 1st, play the schedule as is. At least to me, you get, again, 125 of the 162 games, so you salvage most of the year, which, is, I think, at least impressive to where we could think it could go to where, you were looking at a seriously condensed schedule. But not to mention, too, at least my thinking is it's not a lot. The schedule's not condensed enough where that could lead to sloppy play and injuries. Playing, to me, at least doubleheaders every week, playing 9 games a week, and basically trying to fit a full season into a shorter time span only leads to more injuries and sloppier play. So at least spreading the season out, still having at least some sort of normal schedule, while also at the same time playing a decent amount of games, I think will lead to the best product on the field. And not to mention, too, if you're only moving basically everything of the regular season back 2 weeks, you end the season 2 weeks later, the playoffs and the World Series start 2 weeks later, you could start the offseason 2 weeks later and carry that over into the next year. So spring training starts 2 weeks later than normal, which is huge because the season starting on March 26th, to me at least, is too risky in terms of weather. We're lucky here, at least in New York. It's a beautiful morning this morning. It's supposed to be 55 degrees. But how many times in Colorado, Cleveland, New York, it could easily be very cold, rainy, snowy. If you push the season back and the start of the season back 2 weeks next year, you have the season starting in middle April. Again, it just gives you a better chance to have some better weather, a little bit warmer temperatures, and maybe save yourself from some rainouts and early season cancellations because the weather's so crappy in these northeast and northern cities like Detroit, who play outside for, the first month when it's frigid.